fishing. People, when you're in the mood, let's go fishing. Well, it's just me and you. Head on down to the fishing hole. Grab your hat, get your pole. Let's go fishing when you're in the mood.
Canadian sport fishing, brought to you in part by Rapala, premium fishing gear crafted from experience. Crown, protect, maintain, save. Ray Marine Electronics, Ray Marine, simply superior. Fast Fender, the easiest way to attach and adjust your fender. Easy Docker, docking made easy. You know what? We're gonna have a good day, buddy.
Let's go.
Yeah. Let's not walk into the post. Let's not wreck the rod. We got an awesome day, buddy. Man, I don't know if he's gonna stay on there. Yeah.
Nice.
That's why I'm using like 30-pound braid with a pretty stiff bait caster. We'll do like the guys in Bassmaster, right?
There's a fish in there somewhere, and you got a pretty flower too.
I know. That wasn't planned. Look, let's see. Look at, he's wearing it. You know how women wear a
Yeah, Daisy.
Would you like to wear it?
Daisy the bass.
Yeah, would you like to wear, it's actually Lily. Lily. We're gonna be vegetation.
If you're gonna name her Lily.
Correct, okay? Here, you know what would look really nice? You're my friend. Are you gonna put that on your ear? I think it'll look good.
Oh, thank you.
There. Look, now, this is interesting. This guy's only about 1.25 pounds. See how he's hooked really nicely, just in the edge of the mouth? This is a weedless spoon, and it's got that big weed guard right here, but no problem hooking the fish. And what I did just before that cast, I put a Fishing Complete worm on. There it is there. That's my little trailer. Isn't that pretty? Did you want to kiss my bass?
I would love to.
Here.
Your bass.
Your bass.
Mwah.
We love to fish together. Look at, isn't that gorgeous? Small guy, but very aggressive. You know, there's a lot of plastic worms on the market, but when I'm fishing in weeds, especially lily pads, I love to use plastic worms that have a slow drop rate and that have a curly tail, so I get a little bit of action. If people were to ask me what's the most popular color for using a plastic worm, I would say black or purple. And this particular one you can see is a zipper worm, and it's black and blue. So it's black and it's got a blue tail. This is the one that I caught all of my fish with today. It's called plum color with a little bit of flakes. It's a little darker, and it's got that yellowy tail. And then Mike Borovic did really well with this one, which is the pumpkin seed with the yellow tail. I think the reason why these particular worms work so well is because they're two high contrast colors. Number one, the darker body looks very natural, but then the fish see the kicking action from the tail. The other thing is these little ribs that the zipper worms have. They actually trap air as you're casting. It's going through the air. So when it hits the water and it goes to the bottom, it leaves a little bit trail of bubble. Also, because of these little, fins or whatever you want to call them, they actually slow the drop rate down. So we were using them today with, this is, I think, a 3/16 ounce screw-on bullet head. And that tail drops fast enough so that spins around. Very tantalizing. It seems that fish can't resist it.
First bass.
Bass Slayer. You know, I love the summertime when you get those 80, 90-degree days, July and August. And one of my favorite fish to go after is largemouth bass. Like the smallmouth bass, they're part of the sunfish family, but the largemouth bass especially like living in shallow water. They love to hide under mats of weeds that float along the shorelines, and one of my favorite ways to catch them is to cast plastic worms, Texas rig style, where the hook is inside the worm. I try to cast to all kinds of cover, and one of my favorite ways to cast is using a bait caster.
Got him. Got him.
Good job.
Yeah, baby.
That's what you call a follow-up. Now, haul them. Don't give them slack line.
Well, it worked.
Tighten up on your drag. Tighten up on your drag. You got to get them out. Not only is it hard to locate them, and then you got to try to pull them. That's where you're a little bit heavier line. Get them right on top. Plane them if you can. He's not big. Do they have like great vision to be able to smack?
Unbelievable.
So what I call that is I primed him. He came up, I missed him. Right. You followed up split second right on the spot. He fell down. He went, hey, I got a second chance. Bang.
Instantly.
Good job. By the way, I really like your flower.
Thank you.
It looks cute.
Thanks. Next time, daisies.
Okay. Largemouth bass are funny fish. They love to live in shallow water. In some cases, I've gone on lakes where there's lots of weeds, you know, and you're getting into 2-3 feet of water, and you see a little bit of opening way back. I'm talking like a football field. There'd be little pockets. And a lot of times I've used the push-pull because even the electric can't get through the thick weeds. And you get way back there, and you make a cast to one pocket, and bang, you get a bass on. So for some reason, they have no problem living a solitary life, finding a nice area where there's a little bit of an opening in a vast area of weeds. And I think that's because they can feed there on insects, on frogs, even small mammals that fall into the water like mice, moles, and voles, and even small fish. They could be small bass, small perch, and other panfish that live in that same area. Very smart bass to make a home that shallow where most boats can't get at them.
Beautiful.
Bass.
What? I got a front row. Look at this show.
Bass. Isn't that nice?
Awesome.
The view.
Look how clear it is. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Can you tell he went down in the weeds? What I like about using the worm is that they slide up and down the line, right?
Yeah.
So it's not even getting damaged.
Nice.
Such a healthy largemouth. Look at those gorgeous colors. You know, I'm glad that Mike and I got to fish up here. The scenery's so beautiful. We've got conditions that are almost stormy, but it's not rainy or thunderstorms, which is perfect. Look at that. You can see those nice models down the side. I'm going to be so gentle with this guy because I want him to grow real big. And this water's so clear, look. Oh yeah, he's ready to go. Beautiful. Now, you know, we purposely are using these zipper worms that have the ribs on the sides because when you drop them down, they actually collect air. So they release air bubbles, at least for the first 2 or 3 jigs. And we're using these screw lock sinkers, the bullet sinkers, so they don't slide up and down the line. And then about a 5/0 hook. And the one thing that I think is really important because of the conditions, we've got overcast skies, is having these bright little curly tails at the end. Mike's got one that's like a pumpkin seed color. Mine is like purple with the chartreuse. And we're just working these shorelines, having fun. Closed captioning is brought to you by K100. We make water burn. Mikey, this is okay. I love catching panfish. I know you do too, but this is okay.
This is okay.
Yep.
You got that right.
Yep.
They hit like
almost
monsters,
out.
do they not?
Oh yeah, I love it when they pick up the plastics. Beautiful. Look, didn't even hurt them a little bit. We'll take them in any size, from that size right up to 5-6 pounds. Let me introduce you to a really handy item that I've been using to store my rods, whether I carry them or I keep them on the boat. I no longer have a wad of rods in my hands. In this case, I have 5. And you know what? Most of the time, I don't have more than 5 rods with me. I find that's plenty. I mean, I'll have other rods maybe in the vehicle in case something happens and I got to replace one. What I like about the Rod Runner is that you can carry with this nice handle all your rods. You can see that it's got 4 legs on the bottom. So the 4 legs are designed so that it'll stand up. And I love to have this in the boat because my rods aren't touching. You know, if you had in a boat with carpet, in my case, it's all aluminum, there's no problem. But the rods are safe. Even when I'm running and going over waves, the rod can bounce. You can see that. I'm gonna shake them. They don't tangle up, they stay apart, and the blanks don't rub against anything, so they're in very good condition. The nice thing is that if you wanna lock them down, you can see that all of the rods, all of the rod holders have a bungee, and there's a little tab on the other side. You just put the bungee around the back, and that locks the rod into place. When I'm fishing, I have the bungee off because I want to be able to take the rods out on demand. So I no longer put my rods down. I mean, I have to walk, let's say, from the front of the boat to the back of the boat. And if anyone is fishing with me, there's no problem, and the rods aren't sticking straight up in the air. You know, on many boats, there are rod holders, especially on a center console. There are rod holders on the side of the console, and the rods stick straight up. And myself and other people, you go to backcast, especially when you get all excited and you hook one of the rods. So the nice thing about the rod runner is that the rods are at an angle and they're quite low. So when you're standing up, they won't interfere with your casting. You know, it's fun getting bass out of the weeds, but sometimes it helps to find small, isolated weed beds. And one thing that I do, especially on lakes that are heavily fished in southern Ontario, I try to find bays that have lily pads and weeds, but that are smaller in size, where there are no other bays close to it. A lot of times, those areas are bypassed. Sometimes they're creeks or just canals that in the summertime get clogged up with weeds. Good fish.
Yeah.
Yeah,
baby. All right.
That's what you call a lily pad largemouth. Mike, well done. For horsing him out like that, like a pro.
Yeah. Nice one.
Good job, good release. Largemouth bass really like a mud bottom. I've done really well with them, fishing even rocky lakes, you know, fishing around the rocks where there's vegetation, but most of the time I find that if you can find an area where there's a lot of thick weeds in a big bay, and then you find a little bit of rock outcrop, if you fish where that transition is, where the weeds stop and the rocks, you see the boulders and everything, I try to cast along the edges. A lot of times if it's a big bay that's full of weeds, I'll go past the weeds because a lot of times between the weeds and the shore, there's a lack of weeds. The water's a lot shallower, it might only be about 2 or 3 feet deep. But the only cover that bass cruising there under low light have is either to go near a boat dock or near a boat that's there. You know what? I don't care if they're small, Mike. This is a lot of fun, eh? It's like an interactive game.
I love this through the lily pads like this.
I'm just amazed how they can spot our baits through the stick stuff. Okay, let me see if I can get him here. See if I can lay him down on a pad. Look at it. Will he support it? Let's see. Slowly going down. Beautiful. Raymarine Electronics. Raymarine, simply superior. This is like pulling him out of a field, Mikey.
Oh, come on, don't do this again.
Come on,
oh,
get
yeah,
it. You gotta keep him up.
All right.
You got him. You got him. The big ones are taking us down. But you know what? That's okay. For this kind of fishing, that's a nice size fish.
I'll take it.
Take 2-pounders all day long.
Ever hear a walleye guy say he'll take it?
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, this is fun. Come on, you got to admit, is this fun?
This is just
This is
ridiculously fun, okay?
Yeah. And they're
I know.
sunfish,
It's
so they
not
qualify.
big.
Doesn't
but
matter.
It's fun.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
I love it. Oh, come here, little guy.
See if he'll sit on top of a lily pad, Mike.
What?
Put him gently on a lily pad, on his side. Say, here's, oh, I guess he wanted to leave. You know, most people use a spinning outfit for all-round fishing. And when I talked to Mike and I said, we're gonna be bass fishing, Mike said, oh man, I just brought my bluegill stuff, you know? So I said, no problem, I have a spinning rod for you. And I had a couple of them for him. So the spinning rod is great to use when you're fishing for largemouth bass in thick weeds, but you gotta have one that's a little bit stiffer. This one is a medium heavy action. It's an R-type rod. It's 6.5 feet long, 2-piece. But I caught all of my fish on the bait caster. This is the Concept TI rod with the Chaos reel. And the reason I like the bait caster is because of the fighting butt. As soon as I hook a fish, I brace the actual rod right to my arm. So I've got a lot of leverage there. So you can see the way that is sitting against my arm. And I put my back into it because especially when you get a bass and it's in heavy cover, you gotta keep the rod up in the air to try to get the best angle to the fish. You don't want your line down so it goes into other weeds as you're fighting it. And you wanna have the power and torque, and you can't have that from just your wrist. So I find with the bait caster, it's got a lower gear ratio, so I can heave the fish in more. It's got more torque, and by having that fighting butt on my arm, I can really put pressure on it to lift the fish. And I only lost maybe a couple of fish today. I got most of them in, including some of the nice ones, like 3-pounders. So I would say to people, you can use a spinning outfit if you're fishing in the lily pads, but make sure it's a stiffer action. Better still, use a bait caster. Run at least 30-pound braid. You can go up to 50-pound braid because it's such a low line diameter. That way, if you hook a big fish, like a 4 or 5 pounder, you've got a really good chance of heaving it out of those weeds. You know, I love largemouth bass because you can get them all day long, especially in the summer. I mean, I'll fish water temperature that's 80 degrees, air temperature that's 90 degrees, bright sunny skies, and largemouth bass that are undercover will cooperate all day long. As a matter of fact, I've caught some of my biggest bass, largemouth, in I'm going to say the 18 to about 22-inch range. Those are fish from about 4 to 5.5, 6 pounds in the middle of the day. I believe one of the reasons why I love largemouth bass fishing in the summertime using weedless spoons, plastic frogs, and plastic worms is because I really grew up catching bass out of a canoe. Now I remember fishing shallow water where the water was so shallow that sometimes the canoe was riding on the weeds like wild rice, and I would have to grab the wild rice and pull the canoe because the paddle couldn't reach the water. But then I'd get to an area where the water was a little bit deeper, and I did that for years. You know, my parents would drop me off at a lake, and I would do that, and I would use a lot of the weedless lures. And a lot of times I would get 5 to 10 really nice bass, like 3 to 5 pounds, fishing some of the heaviest weeds where no other boats went in because they couldn't get in there with the boat and motor. So the type of fishing that we're doing today is ideal if you like to kayak fish, because most of the places, if you step out or you put your paddle in, you can touch the bottom. It's only 2 to 4 feet deep, but that doesn't stop the bass from going in there. Largemouth bass love shallow water because they know there's lots of food there, and they'll hit all day long. Mikey was right on the edge of the weeds.
Right there.
Just when I went to change the electric position. Oh no, come out of there.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Is he still on there? Yes, he's still on there. Look at.
Hey, I like that one.
Amazing. I felt like a ninja there for the hook set. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't. I just heard the whoosh.
Yeah, because I was pulling away with the electric, and I felt him on, and I just nailed him, even though I wasn't looking, you know, where I was casting.
I think I might have felt that whoosh. Nice fish, buddy.
Can you tell I got him out of the weeds? Look at that. Nice little belly. Man, I think this is awesome, Mike. Just reminds me of my childhood. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Hooked him nicely. Not going to hurt him. Just hooked in the side of the edge of the mouth. Sure pays to use a nice worm hook. Nice fish, eh? Beautiful.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Mike, I don't want to keep him out too long. And gone. Big boil. Look it, you know, I've been using one worm for quite a while. Micah's been using that pumpkin seed. I've got really good luck with this plum and yellowtail. And I'm amazed because I landed about 5, 6 fish on the same worm. So I'm really partial on using this kind of a worm hook and the zipper worm. I mean, it's been working great. The nice thing is about that screw-in head that the weight never shifts so that you get weeds caught in between. I mean, when they grab that, it's so soft. It looks like a living thing. That was awesome. Rod Runner Canada, grab and go fishing. You know, when I'm fishing for largemouth bass, whether it's on open weed beds and weed lines, and especially around docks and boats that, you know, bass can hide under, or heavy cover like lily pads and so on, one of my favorite presentations is to use a Texas rig plastic worm in about the 7-inch length. So what I'm holding up here is the only terminal tackle that you really need. What I have in my left hand, this is a bullet sinker. It's 3/16 ounce, but look, it's special. You see it's got a little plastic tube, and then it's got this wire. It's like a corkscrew. This is very important because once you have your worm rigged up, the line goes through it, and you actually put that corkscrew wire into the worm so that it stays connected. So it'll stay there, even when you're fighting a fish. Your worm might slide up the line with the weight, but it won't come off there. Otherwise, if you're just using a normal bullet sinker, you have to use a toothpick to anchor it. One of the challenges when you do hook a largemouth, whether it's 1 pound or 5 pounds, and there's lots of heavy lily pads, is trying to get them out. Because when you set the hook, Usually your line doesn't go from your rod tip right to the actual lure, especially a plastic worm, because your plastic worm probably has fallen through some lily pads down below, maybe 6 inches, maybe 2 feet where a bass has grabbed it. So your line now is going around the stems of the lily pads and maybe in between the actual lily pad leaf, because it's shaped like a heart and there's a groove in it. So when you set the hook, you don't get a good hook set. And if you're caught up on the vegetation, all the bass has to do is shake his head once or twice and it gets off. So even today, we lost probably a half a dozen bass where the bass came up, we hit them, we started to reel them in, and then we got bogged down. All different sizes. Pretty. Big largemouth bass in practice. You know, I love fishing with Mike Borovic. We kid each other. Mike is a multi-species angler. I mean, he's got beautiful brown trout, you know, fishing steelhead rivers in the fall with me. He's a master at catching bluegill and crappie, and he hunts down the big ones. I mean, he'll get bluegill that are like 10, 11 inches. He'll get crappie that are like 15, 16 inches, you know, and he's got all his rods, just like a tournament bass fisherman has 5, 10 rods for bass fishing. He's got all these high quality rods, all rigged with the right baits for these small panfish that he likes to catch. And I always tease him that, you know, we're gonna go bass fishing because that's a real man's fish, right? Because they have bass tournaments. Mind you, they have crappie tournaments too and stuff. So it was nice to be out today because I don't think he's fished in the lily pads like that.
What you got there, buddy?
A bass, a weed bass. He went down, I thought he got off. You gonna jump? You gonna throw the hook? You're entitled to. You're Mr. Largemouth. You gonna jump again? I don't want you to jump and get the hook in my finger. Beautiful. Come on. Okay. There. I thought he definitely got off because he took me right down in the weeds. There. Look. Beautiful. Fun fish. This guy could grow up to be a 5-pounder. 18, 19, 21-inch fish. Beautiful. Okay, go back to your lily pads. Canadian Sport Fishing, brought to you in part by Rapala, premium fishing gear crafted from experience. Crown, protect, maintain, save. Ray Marine Electronics, Ray Marine, simply superior. Fast Fender, the easiest way to attach and adjust your fender. Easy Docker, docking made easy. Look at you.
Come on, baby.
Come on.
Come on.
Let's see him. It's hard for them to fight, eh? Because the weeds are so thick.
Yeah.
Nice one. Flip him in the boat, Bassmaster style.